Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and roll on. Okay, I think we're at the point we can get it restarted, but you kind of get what I told you up front is we're going to do rolling transitions here to keep us on schedule today. Fantastic presentation, by Stuart, and I really appreciate the well thought out questions that you provided. So hopefully we will continue that trend. But I'm really excited to introduce to you our next presentation. I call this the Power of Purpose. You are going to experience the 8-year journey on workforce development of the Development Authority of LaGrange. And so what you're going to hear about is the strategies that they've had collective buy-in on to align industry, community, and education. And I think based on what Stuart just told us, I think this is I could not have planned this any better in terms of a sequel to some of the things that Stuart started to unpack for us. But the community leaders with us today will undoubtedly stimulate our thoughts on how we uncover hidden pipelines of talent, how we identify barriers. You heard some of the barriers mentioned during Q&A, and how we create an environment of data-driven decision-making. So joining us today, we have Kelly Bush. She is the Director of Existing Industry and Workforce Development for the Development Authority of LaGrange. Next to her, we have Nikki Baradas, the Assistant Manager for Human Resources and Administrator at Hyundai Transys, also based in West Point. And then we also have Jeff Matthews, Vice President of Operations at Fokker Services Americas. So please join me in welcoming Kelly, Nikki, and Jeff.
Hi, good morning. Thank you all for having us here today. We're really pleased to present our 8-year journey of really how we reverse engineered as an organization into workforce development. I consider myself an accidental workforce development professional. This all started with really having to roll up our sleeves and have the hard conversations and understanding that using our voice to be the voice for the voiceless and removing the barriers in our community. Some of the components of our presentation could be a little provocative, and it's intentionally provocative. We really like having the hard conversations, and we think without those conversations, change doesn't happen. I'm going to use a little bit of cheat sheet. I don't have my glasses, and this nearsighted person can't really see that monitor very well. So quickly, just to recap this, did it click? There we go. This is the team that's up here. Again, I'm Kelly Bush. I'm Director of Existing Industry and Workforce Development, and Nikki and Jeff are two of my really clutch industry representatives. We are a manufacturing community in Troup County, and I'm very fortunate. We have a robust existing industry strategy, and we have great collective buy-in from our industry partners on our workforce development strategies. The Development Authority of LaGrange, we do not function like most development authorities. In 2015, we were like most development authorities. We focused on the recruitment of capital investment and jobs into the community. Now, today, what we do, 90% of what we do is we consider workforce development. And because of our focus on workforce development, our economic development activity has become substantial and organic. Last year, we turned down $1.3 billion in economic development projects because we're now in the position to cherry pick our projects based on the needs of our community, wages, and the diversification of our manufacturing base. Today, we consider workforce development an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is housing all levels, transportation, early child care education, and upskilling and training. But a couple years ago, I need to probably change the slide, was literacy. But most important is equitable access to all of those components. In 2017, our local Chamber of Commerce commissioned, and real quick before I even continue, this is going to sound a little bit like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the next few slides, but I really think it's important to transparently show you how messy and difficult the process of alignment can be. In 2017, our local Chamber of Commerce commissioned a labor shed study from Avalanche Consulting out of Austin, Texas. Of course, looking at that labor shed study today, hindsight's 2020. But what we realized at that time, where we had in our SWOT analysis, we had had no new multifamily product in a decade. We were a community that didn't want to grow. We have great jobs in our community, but our job growth was outpacing our population growth. We were very vulnerable to not being able to support a substantial expansion of one of our existing industry partners. Our poverty rate was 21%. As of last year, it's now close to 26%. But also what we realized was this quote right here is something that was buried in the study that I went back later and pulled this out because it really foreshadowed what we would be dealing with. And without building connections between employers, educators, and students, Troup County is vulnerable regarding the creating a future workforce and attracting new residents. It was also during this time that during our existing industry visits that we began to hear rumblings from our partners in our manufacturing facilities that our local College and Career Academy wasn't working. The College and Career Academy was founded for our manufacturing partners to create a local pipeline of talent for our manufacturing partners, and it wasn't working. This was a little bit confusing for us because we were having all of the smart people, having all the meetings at all the tables around the community, talking about workforce development and really thinking that we're prioritizing our manufacturing partners. So we had a disconnect. It wasn't until we paid a delegation visit to Volkswagen Academy in Chattanooga that we began to realize where we were doing it wrong. On the second day of our visit to Volkswagen Academy, the question was posed to the leadership, how were they recruiting students into their academy? And the answer was they recruited from the lowest 20% performers in their school system. They wanted the students that lived with grandma. Their engagement started early in elementary school. They provided transportation, food, and free summer camps at the elementary school level, middle school level, and their strategy was so successful that this became their primary point of recruitment into this program. We realized that we were doing it all wrong. How were we doing it wrong? We realized the barriers that existed that were impacting the students that really needed access to the training, to the exposure to the jobs and the high-paying careers in our community. First, students had to opt into the program. Well, people say, well, why does that matter? Number one, a student has to be aware of their particular skills and aptitudes, and do they align with the pathways offered at our College and Career Academy? And their parent would also need to be made aware of their skills and aptitudes and have understanding of the value of the College and Career Academy. You are unable to enroll if you are credit deficient. That filters out the lowest performers in our school system. Again, that would be the entry-level employees that would be remaining in our community post-high school graduation. Summer camps and STEM camps had a fee, and they required a letter of recommendation from a teacher or a pastor at that time. And again, this impacts we're a high poverty community, this impacts the lowest socioeconomic students in our school system the most. Industry's voice was not being heard. From the education perspective and through the education lens, our College and Career Academy was working just fine, thank you, and they would like for us to stay in our lane over with industry. Didn't met industry where they were the largest funders of our College and Career Academy. But for education, they said they weren't getting the pipeline, but education partners were saying it's working great. 95% of our kids are going to college post-high school graduation, and we're raising the graduation rate, and look at all of the wonderful diverse pathways that we're offering just so they can have some experience. There was a disconnect. The demographics mirrored the school system, and they were correct. The racial demographics did mirror the school system, but not the academic demographics. When you're filtering out the lowest performers, of course, you've now created a magnet school in the public school system. And the recruitment was not based on local needs or student aptitudes. And of course, all of these barriers impacted the most vulnerable students and community members in our community. It was also during this time that I do quarterly surveys of my existing industry base, and it was one critical workforce needs survey that really was a defining moment and put us on the path to alignment. 80% of our industry partners surveyed reported they had an immediate need for entry-level labor that they were willing to train themselves with the only skill required going, please go to lunch and come back. They were willing to put all of the resources in training them. 73% said they were willing to hire high school graduates with no experience. 43% of our industry partners anticipated an expansion or retooling. Really concerning was out of 264 students in work-based learning, we had 4 in the manufacturing sector. And of course, this was buried in a Perkins presentation, and if you didn't know what questions to ask, you would never have known. 82% of our industry partners reported they were not at that time partnering with our school system to develop programs, apprenticeships, or curriculum to impact the needs of our local manufacturing base. They are our largest employers, they're our largest taxpayers, but most important, they are the largest contributors to our school system, and their voice wasn't being heard. We realized following the survey, we pulled together some of the executives from our largest employers, including Mr. Stuart Countess, who has been a tremendous partner in our alignment efforts and supporter in our workforce development efforts, and presented them with the data. And Scott Malone, who's president of the Development Authority, he made the determination, he was an ex officio member of the College and Career Academy Board. He said, I'm going to try to change the model from the inside, and I said, I'm going to start my own program. I partnered with the assistant superintendent, at the time, Dr. Penny Johnson, and we created the School to Work program in 2019. The School to Work program was really, the pilot program was to show the value and show the students they had value and remove the stigma around our credit deficient students and show them as a valuable workforce pipeline. We started with 26 students. The 30-day program, the students had to volunteer to be a part of the program. We targeted 7 industry partners that we felt that were best prepared to support them. We realized we had students that were foster students. We had 2 that were getting ready to age out of the foster care system. Some came from backgrounds of domestic violence, familial addiction, generational poverty, and we really wanted to make sure that we had the right industry partners that would be able to support them at their employment level. Ironically, none of the students that we worked with on the 26 had ever been through Kia or through a manufacturing facility. They had no awareness about the high-paying careers right in our backyard. They needed a lot of support regarding interview and resume writing, and we provided that as well as interview attire for that day. I'm trying to cram about an hour's worth of a presentation into 15 minutes, I'm sorry. The outcome of the program at the 60-day mark, 26 students had 52 job offers at the when the pilot ended in 30 days. At the 60-day mark, out of the 26 students, only 4 remained employed. And a lot of people said, well, that's a huge failure, and at first that's how I thought about it. But again, this was another defining moment that I realized that it was the failure that is really helping us win today. And I like to talk about the 4 students that did remain employed. 2 of the students that remained employed had been employed previously. They were employed in fast food. They had inconsistent hours, working part-time, no benefits. Suddenly, they're 17 years old, and in 2019, they're offered jobs making almost $18 an hour with an employee-owned company. They were working 4 10-hour days, had 3-day weekends, health insurance, vacation. They're like, this is fantastic. The other 2 had never worked, but were student athletes. And why does that matter? I think we can all, Stuart talked about soft skills, and I think we can all speak to the value of athletics, and especially team athletics and extracurriculars as a layer of employability skills. 41% of the students in our school system are certified at the poverty level. It's $450 to play JV soccer in our school system. It's $900 to play football. If you're a ringer, you're going to have a coach or a booster that's willing to pay for you to get that experience, that you're going to have your social network expand, to be able to work with part of a team and take direction. If you are a lower socioeconomic student that it has barriers from a single parent household and transportation, that is going to preclude you Not only do you not have access to our college and career academy, you don't have access to the programs that can help prepare you to be successfully employed. Understanding this and understanding it was pretty arrogant of us to think that we could change a belief system from somebody that has only known deficit, and you hand them success and think that they were going to be successful, we realized that when someone is drowning, it's not the time to teach them to swim. We knew that this was going to be a long-term strategy, and we were going to have to engage early with robust resources and support, but we had hundreds of these students in our system. The school system also agreed, and in 2021, we formally launched the Troup County, I do not have my glasses, oh my, the Troup County Career Center. It's a standalone facility. In 2021, we had 150 credit deficient students. It is a voluntary credit recovery program. In 2024, we have 190 students enrolled. It's a holistic environment. They have employability skills development classes. The Development Authority has funded many programs to support the students in this in the Troup County Career Center. But it was one of those programs that we funded that was also another defining moment that changed how we view workforce development. We realized with the proximity of our career academy, well, the career center, to our technical college, there was an opportunity for students to be dual enrolled or to earn certificates. In order to be dual enrolled, they had to have a 2.0 at that time or pass the AccuPlacer, and the students that we were working with in the Career Center could do neither. So the Development Authority funded $25,000 for a pilot group of 25 students out of the Career Center, a neuroplasticity program to help build their confidence and prepare them to be able to take the AccuPlacer. It was my exposure to seeing the assessments of those 25 students that's forever changed my purpose and my strategy for workforce development moving forward. I saw Woodcock-Johnson skills assessments where students that were getting ready to be handed a diploma that could not read on a 5th or 6th grade level. I saw an African American young lady that was doing college level math that could not read on a 5th grade level. We realized that if one of the students that was voluntarily participating in our Career Center and fighting to be graduated had went into one of our employers and filled out an application that looked like one of these assessments, it would be balled up and thrown in the trash can. The system had failed our students. We were graduating students that had the equivalent of a 7th grade education and gaslighting them and telling them that with this high school diploma that their life was going to be changed forever. So we realized that something needed to be done, and it was going to take a community effort to do that. It was also ironic that the students that needed access to our college and career academy are the very students that need access to our technical college but unable to get there. Coming out of that, literacy has become a primary focus for the Development Authority, and in particular now our community. I consider myself now not just a workforce developer, now I'm a lobbyist, but I'm a lobbyist in my own community to really get buy-in on the initiatives and how to really transform our community and show them how all the pieces fit together. For example, we have this data, I'm not naming the schools specifically, but we have 4 schools in our community that are identifiable by race and socioeconomics. Out of those 4 schools, we're plus or minus 313 students, 61% of them, and this data, we're getting updated data, but again, this was 2 years ago, 61% of our 4th graders were not reading on grade level, and of the 61%, 66% of those were certified as economically disadvantaged receiving SNAP or TANF benefits. We realized that we needed to advocate for the resources to stop the hemorrhage of low literacy in our community. Oftentimes when I'm giving this presentation, some of the feedback I'll get after when the presentation's over from community members, they'll say, you know, it's not my fault they had crappy parents. You know, it starts with the family. What are we supposed to do? I shouldn't have to take from my child to give to somebody else, right? I've learned, number one, if you're not pro-child first, you're not on my team, and I don't want losers on my team, so you're not on my team. Okay. And then it's educating our community members that the free and reduced lunch that our community as a whole benefits from for all the students, even the affluent, comes on the backs of our poor students. I haven't had yet an affluent family turn down the free breakfast and free lunch that their student enjoys. And I won't even get started on Title I funding and the opacity around that. So why does literacy matter? Because as a community, we have a choice. We have a choice to have a workforce pipeline or a pipeline to the prison system or welfare. And it's using my voice and using our industry partners' voice to really affect this change. Data shows that 2/3 of students that are not reading proficiently by the 4th grade will end up in jail or on welfare. And these are the very students, the credit deficient, economically disadvantaged, unprepared students that will remain in our community post-high school graduation. Hundreds of students each year, and the impact of a poverty level in a community and the potential positive impact in workforce development, and we realized it was time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Stuart Countess was integral, as was Nikki and Jeff and a lot of our other industry partners, in pulling together. In 2022, we had our first business and education symposium. This symposium pulled together educators, CTAE coaches, counselors, and industry partners into the same room to begin really understanding what manufacturing jobs look like, the needs of our manufacturing, and how can we begin to have a common language and simplify the alignment process. That symposium has been so successful, we've repeated. It's now an annual event in our community. What we realized at that symposium was just not that we were missing our lower socioeconomic kids. Well, I don't want to say we're missing them. We were intentionally overlooking them. So I want to make sure I say that. Was we also had the missing middle. Up to 50% of the students, it was said by then Jonathan Laney, who was the director of CTAE, he thought it was even more than that, were choosing to forego post-secondary education immediately upon high school graduation. I live on the Governor's Office of Student Achievement website. I'm a data nerd. I love getting in there and really digging down, especially granularly at each of the schools. For example, in the 2017 graduates, at the 5-year mark, only 16.3% had achieved a bachelor's degree, and 67% at the 5-year mark of our 2017 graduates were not enrolled and without a post-secondary credential. We realized we needed to have broad student engagement. We were overlooking the educationally unsuccessful, but we were also overlooking the students that were functioning just fine on the base campuses, but had no idea of the job opportunities available in our community. We also realized we weren't using the tools that we had available to us. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with HB 400, that is the Bridge Bill, Building Resource for Individuals to Develop Georgia's Economy Act. This was signed into law in 2010 by Governor Nathan Deal in an effort to align students' skills and aptitudes to their particular pathways in high school. This is important for me. It helps especially I'm trying to think of how I'm going to put this. The reason why is when we have the large number of economically disadvantaged students in our school system that have only experienced failure, asking them to self-identify their skills and aptitudes, I think that there's some internal biases and belief system that will prevent them from seeing that they possess particular skills and aptitudes. The state of Georgia funds U-Science as a component of the Bridge Bill to help that, but just as important as the skills and aptitudes assessment, because we can administer skills and aptitudes assessments all the time, but if we don't have the coordinating counseling to support that with parents and caregivers and the student, we're shoving square pegs in round holes, and Troup County had less than 1% compliance with U-Science in 2022. This is just to summarize, sort of, I don't like to have a lot of words up there, but there are a lot of words up there as to why it's important to intentionally identify the skills and aptitudes of our students. I'm running behind, so I'm gonna go ahead and push through that. Just as important as our alignment between education and business was alignment with the community. We realized at the time we had a special mayoral election happening in our community, and our 2 candidates for mayor were at a forum at our local Chamber of Commerce and said when they were elected, they were going to bring great jobs to our community, and I almost lost my mind. I'm like, we have great jobs right here in our community, and how could our elected officials be so out of touch to not recognize that? It was also at that time that I was approached by some of the Black leaders in our community that there was a stigma around my role in workforce development. And it was viewed by some of the Black leaders in our community that my role was to take disadvantaged Black youth and to funnel them into manufacturing positions. It was important for me to sit and meet with the NAACP, to meet with our Black leadership, to understand the history of Troup County. We were number 5 in the state of Georgia for the number of slaves held. We were a textile community, and often in those textile mills, African Americans held the worst jobs in those mills. And that stigma continued to pass down generation to generation. Coming out of that and understanding, we pulled together leadership tours, and this is now also an annual event of our local elected officials, our Black leadership in the community. We want to make sure we're taking them through the facilities, allowing them to meet with leadership, learn about the jobs, talk to the people on the floor. Manufacturing jobs, we understand they're not for everyone, but they're not for anyone if we don't talk about it, and they are the highest paying jobs in our community. The average manufacturing wage in Troup County right now is $68,000. So quickly, I want to go through some initiatives, and then I'm going to hand this off because I think I'm way over my time. So we have early childhood and literacy. Nikki's going to get into that. Our educator, community, and counselor tours. These are also very important. They provide our counselors and educators the opportunity to also get into the manufacturing facilities, to learn about the jobs, to learn about the skill sets. One thing I do like to always share, and I had the conversation with the school system, is the director of CTAE told me it's important for counselors to get in and really have the conversations with leadership. They want to make sure that there are upward mobility with manufacturing jobs and what the wages are. And I said, that's fantastic. We need to negate the stigma around manufacturing careers. I agree with that. But are we doing that for all of our employers? Are we continuing to perpetuate that stigma just by how we're acting about that? Do we do that for CNAs, who are some of the lowest paid jobs in our community? So those conversations are the types of conversations that we're having around that. Our business and industry group lunch, this was also very important. This came out of our symposium. We had a local high school. Jeff Matthews will talk more about that. He actually hired a couple of his ringers out of our big lunch program. It allows our manufacturing partners to have engagement with a curated group of students that meet the criteria for industry. Green Power USA, I think you heard Stuart Countess talking about this program. Our industry partners love this program. This program, I think now it's in every school in our school system, and it's also in an after-school program. Middle school and industry tours, this is also annually. It's held in February. We're in process of planning our February tours right now. I'll also let Nikki talk about that. And our Manufacturing Day event, this was something that we started in 2023. It was the largest in the country. We hosted 1,200 students from 5 different school systems, 3 chambers of commerce, and 2 development authorities, and we partnered. We held it on our technical college campus, and it was a celebration of our existing industry base, and it was broad level student engagement. We invited the community to come in. We had the media. This past for 2024, it was even bigger. We've had so many students that have become employed with our manufacturers out of our Manufacturing Day. Now we're going to talk, I'll let you engage. We're going to have Jeff Matthews with Fokker come up and talk about his alignment and employer-driven apprenticeships and internships.
Good morning. So what's my role in this? So we are not a true manufacturer. We're an aircraft maintenance. I hate microphones. Sorry about that. So and podiums. So I am. We're actually an aircraft maintenance component repair facility in LaGrange, Georgia. So how I got involved with this is Kelly called me one day and said, "Why don't you do a big lunch?" And I said, "Well, we're a little too small to do a big lunch. Can we do a small lunch?" So we brought a group of young people into our facility. Actually, I went to one of the schools and met with 4 people, and we brought them into our business. So for me, it's legacy time. I'm looking for a way to make an impact. I mean, I'm real close to retirement, probably should have gone a long time ago, but I'm trying to make sure that I do the right thing to make sure young people have an opportunity, the same kind of opportunity that I had and was able to make for myself as well. I have faith in young people today. You know, I've heard a lot of people that don't, but I think the young people that we work with today are very, very capable of carrying on the next generation of work group that we have. I recognize that some students that are not going to college are being lost in the system. You know, I have 3 sons. My oldest son went to college, and they were a product of the Fayette County school system, one of the best school systems in the state of Georgia. My second son decided he didn't want to go to college. Well, he came home and said, "Dad, the counselors don't know what to do with me. I'm not going to college." So, and I think what I got from him and what I see from some counselors, and I hope I'm not offending anyone, is if that young person comes in and not going to college, then it's, well, yeah, you're probably not going to be too successful in life. And I think we need to make sure that all children are given the opportunity to be successful, whether they're college bound or not, and make sure that we know how to speak to those children and guide them in the right direction. And that's one of the reasons I got involved as well. So it was a little bit personal for me as well. How we got involved again, Kelly called me and we did the lunch. I'm trying to speed it up. So I went to HR, and I want to talk about what Stuart mentioned a little bit earlier. I went to our HR department, and all I got was how we can't. You can't do that. Insurance won't allow you to do it. These young people today, they're immature. They don't have a work ethic. You know, they're lazy. They lack direction. You know, all they want to do is play on their phone. All of those things, I heard it over and over and over again from HR department and my vice president. And I'm going to challenge anybody in this room that if you're an industry leader, you have to have a passion for it to make this happen. You have to be the person that's willing to stand up and say, I want this to happen. Because I'm working on airplane parts, guys. So it's not like it's something that most people are going to say, well, a 17-year-old come in and work on aircraft parts, but they can. And they're doing a great job. So make sure that you push your HR department, just like Stuart said, to give an answer for how to make it happen, not why it can't happen. And generally today, our HR department started with, they just don't know how, they can't. The youth of today don't have what it takes to make it happen. And I totally disagree, and I've got a couple of stories to share with you on why they do. So that's my oldest granddaughter, by the way. And so my HR director now loves the program. And he coined it the Toddlers to Technicians. And of course, I took the opportunity to share my granddaughter's picture since I was going to put it in the slide, right? So from there, we've had about a 3-year journey of work-based learning. I've had 7 work-based learning students come through my facility so far. They generally start between their junior and senior year. I have one that started this year between his sophomore and junior year. So he's barely into his junior year this year and doing a great job. He's actually in our logistics department. He's one of the underprivileged young people that came into the facility. One of my favorite things to do is look out my office window when he shows up every afternoon. He comes in, he steps out of his grandmother's car. Grandmother's raising him and his brother and sister. He walks to the back of his car, puts on his uniform shirt, puts on his steel-toe shoes, walks around, kisses grandma on the cheek, and goes to work. There's not a better feeling you can have than see a young person that you may be contributing to their long-term success, that has that life that you may put on a path to success in the future. So it's a little self-serving to have that good feeling from time to time as well, right? So we work with work-based learning during their senior year as well. We've hired 4 of them full-time, and they've been very successful so far. I'll share a couple of stories about those as well. 2 are currently enrolled in the work-based learning program, as I said earlier. And one of them received an early promotion. I wanted to make sure I talked about their numbers that they're making. So I have a young man that's in the building today that started between his junior and senior year. He turned 19 years old, and the day before his 19th birthday, he got a promotion in senior tech. We have a very structured promotion process in our system where there's direct, specific requirements, technical requirements they have to meet. And I'm a very strong believer in promotion on merit, not on time. This young person's 19 years old. He's making, I wrote his number down, $57,000 a year base rate plus bonuses plus overtime. He will more than likely push $80,000 this year at 19 years old. So by the time, and he's very much on track. While I'm on the subject of Austin Hanner is his name, I don't mind telling you his name. He's a very bright young man, and I wish I had brought him with me because he could speak better than I do. But by the time he's 20 and a half, he'll be making $67,000 a year. And I very much expect this young man, by the time he's 25 years old, no college education, no debt, he'll be pushing $80,000, $90,000 a year every year without any overtime. So it's the opportunities there for young people if we just open the door to allow them to walk through it. This is my first class. They are, well, actually my first and second. The young man, his nickname with a Tennessee shirt on is Fluffy. He's a story I'm going to tell you about a little bit next. He's my greatest success story. So this young man came to us to interview for a job. We sat down to do the interview, and he told me, he said, he did great on the interview. He's a little shy, but he's 17 years old. Mr. Matthews, I'm not going to graduate. And I said, well, I can't hire you. And he said, well, I really need a job. And I said, well, I know the right people to call. So, and this is the second component of this piece, that's a second component that is so important. Educators have to really care. So I reached out to Courtney Frills, who is the person in charge of the work-based learning program for me. I said, I need this kid to graduate so I can hire him, because he has to be able to perform to be successful. So she guaranteed me that she would get his credit deficiency issue resolved so he could graduate, and he did. And we went through, and he was very successful. So one of the things that this young man had, and you're going to see, and it's going to require you to be very resilient in your approach, is he was that person that had some of the attributes that my HR director thinks all young people today have. He wasn't super motivated. That cell phone, I know we love technology. We need technology. I have one sitting right over there, and I hope it doesn't ring right now. But it is definitely a challenge for all of us in any kind of a work environment today. And so we had a lot of challenges with this young man, with his cell phone, with not wanting to show up for work, and with lots of different things. So I directly mentor all of my work-based learning trainees today because it's just something I love to do. They have a work mentor and they have a career mentor. I'm their career mentor, and we talk about how to be successful over the long time as part of my role. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to make this really quick. But so this young man was failing miserably. We had talked to him about it and worked with him really in a difficult situation. And finally, the week before Christmas, I suspended him. And his work-based mentor, his work mentor, and all the people in the organization thought I was an evil human being. I had just ruined the young man's life. I suspended him a week before Christmas, but I called him on Christmas Eve and offered him his job back. And my belief was I would rather ruin his Christmas than ruin his life. So you can't believe how fast he told me he wanted to come back and to be good from now on when I called him and asked him to come back. But the real message here is this: you got to find out what the problem is. So we sat down when he came back and we talked about why he was not successful, why he couldn't come to work on time. Well, he goes to school, he loves to play video games, and he's got a girlfriend, and he loves to work out. So how do you fit all that into a 24-hour period, right? So I asked him, so tell me what your daily schedule looks like. Well, I go to school in the morning, I come to work here. Well, I come here in the morning, I go to school in the afternoon, then I go to the gym, and then I go see my girlfriend. I said, well, you can fit all that in. Well, I like to game. So what does gaming mean? He said, well, gaming means that I get up in the morning, that I go home and I get on my game after the gym, and I game until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with my friends, then I can't get up and come to work. So I gave him options. You can give up your job, your school, your girlfriend, the gym, or the game. So he chose the game. The young man's very successful now. He's actually going into his first full year of employment. He's a full-time employee with us now. He will be very successful, and so he's our greatest success story, a young man that wasn't going to make it into the workforce with a high school education, and we were able to guide him along and bring him that way. So, you know, what's in it for you? What's in it for those of you here? Is I think there's an opportunity to have an impact on the future of the next generation. So if that's something you want to do, then by all means, I'm glad to answer any questions you have. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Nikki because I got a little long-winded.
Good afternoon. I'm Nikki Barada. So I'm going to start out with our recruitment process, okay? This was not an easy task putting this together. It had a lot of communication with the school systems, with the work-based learning coordinators, with the students, with our HR team, to figure out what would be the best way and the best methods to get this where we needed it. So if you'll see here, what we do first is we identify where we have our job openings. Where can we place the students? Then we communicate those jobs with our work-based learning coordinators. They then, in turn, post the jobs in the school systems. When I say school systems, I mean all the school systems. The ones that have the credit deficiencies, they're posted there. The ones that are having behavioral issues, they're also posted there. We put them in all the school systems within our district. After that, you have the students apply for the jobs. Once they apply, the work-based learning coordinators are now starting to evaluate their youth science, making sure that they align with the right jobs that we have posted. Because we found before, as Kelly said, people are being placed in jobs where they will not succeed or where their future is not leading them. Prime example, my daughter, she was in work-based learning. They placed her at Chicken Salad Chick. She did not have a youth science test done. I paid out of pocket after talking to Kelly, learning a little bit about it, and did this youth science to find out that she would do better in the medical field. What did she choose to go into when she got out of high school? Radiology. Those 4 years that she spent at Chicken Salad Chick, she could have been in urgent care or at the hospital. I failed her. The school system failed her. She did, get soft skills, learn certain things, but she didn't go into where she needed to go. And that's what we're doing now. We want to make sure each student goes where they need to go and not just placing them. We're involved within the school systems from elementary. As she said, we do the reading, read, learn, grow. We do college and career. We do our big lunches, 7th grade tours. One of the reasons we started doing this is because in 21, we opened a brand new plant next door. I needed 639 people from Troup County to fill those jobs. Where was I going to get them? Pull them from other industries, surrounding areas. But from 21 to now, our 8th graders are now our seniors. And what are they able to do? They're able to fill those jobs. But if we didn't look at them as potentials for the jobs to open, then they would have been left out, okay? There's a purpose for us doing it. We try to make it fun. If you look at our pictures, they have sunglasses on, they're doing signs. The way that we talk to students is not the way that we talk to each other in here. With students, you have to be more direct. You have to be straightforward. You have to present to them what is on the table. Just this week, Friday, I received a call from one of the work-based learning students. Nikki, I have a student that has showed interest in your facility, but he's failing. Why is he failing? Attendance recovery. Okay, what does he need to do to correct that? He needs to spend 3 extra days at school, after school. Okay, tell him to do that. Once he does that, then he can call me. But when he calls me, I'm going to be direct with him and tell him, you're an employee just like our employee. You're expected to be here. If you're not, then I will give this opportunity to the next student. We make it fun, but we make it honest. We tell them what the good is. We tell them what the bad is. They don't care about 401k. They don't care about health benefits. They want to know how much money they can make. And that's one of the problems we had as we were doing this. our work-based learning had us capped at a certain amount that we could bring our students in. They wanted to make it fair around the industries. I started losing engineers to Piggly Wiggly. We can't do that. It's not working. So we had to bring this to the table and say, hey, we need to rediscuss. Real life, wages is considered. When you're looking for a job, what are y'all looking for? How much am I gonna make? Okay? So they have to be able to weigh that in also. Another thing is blind sides. If we don't listen to the students, we don't know what they're missing out on. Our school system, for example, uses Google Docs. How many in here use that in the industry? Microsoft, Excel? Okay, they can't save a file. Why? Because our school system had a blind side and is offering something that is free versus something that they're going to be able to use at our industries. If we don't have those communications and we don't have those talks and we're not straightforward with each other and we're not putting everything on the table, and I hate to say it, but I'm the one that will go in the school system and say, well, this isn't going to work. Let's do this. You complain because the students don't have the opportunities. Okay. I don't see a student here today that is doing a social media or media platform that could be in here videoing and doing pictures and putting together a presentation from what happened today. There's opportunities everywhere. Each industry has an opportunity. Is it hard? Yes. Does it take work? Yes. Does it take time? Yes. Is always the results the best? No. But at the end of the day, the final result and having those students that are succeeding and being able to be sustainable in a company that is sustainable is meaningful. But if we don't invest that time, and I've had the kickbacks of, this isn't going to work, why are we doing this? But we have over 100 students that have been hired, not through work-based learning, but from 21 until now, we have 18-year-old students, 19-year-old students, and 20-year-old students that have went through one of these programs to see our industry. I walk out in the community, hey, you're that lady from Powertrain. Of course, I am. I need to talk to you. I need a job. All right, let's get this done. So being open, communicating with the community, being there for the students, it all takes all of us to work together to make it a success. Thank you.
Let me get to the end. So let's see here. So just to close very quickly, again, I don't have my glasses on. Let me pull this up. Is Alignment Simplified. Also, if you notice at your tables, thank you so much, Andy, for printing this out. This is really an alignment map for our industry partners and education partners. I developed this because sometimes it helps to have a visual that shows alignment. This is a living document, so we continue to change it. But this just shows some of our initiatives starting in the elementary school and on the back through our base schools and our career center. But when I talk about Alignment Simplified, just to close, really it requires a robust business retention and expansion program. It's really having those authentic relationships with your business partners where you're able to understand their current and future workforce needs, make data-driven decisions, project-based learning, in the classrooms because of the barriers that exist for our lower socioeconomic students to be able to provide them that layer of soft skills. Educators, really how I think of the alignment process is educators grow the talent, administer skills and aptitudes assessment to identify the gifts and talents of our students and connect them with opportunities that our industry partners create in their manufacturing facilities. Intentional outreach to underachieving and economically disadvantaged students. Use the tools and resources available through the Georgia Department of Education, through the Carl Vinson Institute. We have the Three Rivers Regional Commission that also have a lot of tools and resources available. Recognize that we're not all speaking the same language. We're all looking at things through our own lens. And sometimes having the hard conversations, rolling up the sleeves and saying, you know what, I tell Greg all the time, this work is not for sissies. And sometimes it's going to take people's feelings being hurt in order to get to the solution. And alignment should benefit all stakeholders. Misalignment really impacts our community, it impacts our employers, but most important, it's tragic for our students who have not had their skills and aptitudes identified and connect them to the pathways. What I like to say is at the high school level, our educators at the high school level are being judged on an outcome over which they've had no control over the process through elementary and middle school. And at that point, when you're being judged on the outcome, you're shoving square pegs in round holes. It's stressful for our teachers, it's stressful for our students. Alignment should not add to our educators' plate. Alignment should really support them in being able to do their job without adding to it. And we're finished for today. And any questions, if there's time for any questions, we're happy to field any questions. My contact information is available if you scan the QR code. That's my Blink. And I'm happy to meet and talk and share any information that I have.